Okay. But is there anything else that we can say about how this approach evolves and how best to help the children, other than devising materials for geography, for biology, and for history, that depend on this picturing ability of the human mind that we call the imagination? Okay? And it's not that, by the way, we don't have materials that appeal to the imagination for language and math. We do. We have them also for language and math. But a lot of the work of language and math has to do with still making what is abstract accessible. So there's both the imagination and these powers of abstract reasoning that are involved, whilst always using materials. Anyway, it was the children's questions then and the children's misunderstandings that lead to the materials that we use in elementary, or rather, it would be better to say that the children use during these elementary years. So our charts, whether it's for geography or botany or for history, or our materials for zoology, our charts, our timelines, the experiments that the children can do, or demonstrations, right, are all devised to answer the new developmental needs that we see in these children. Right? Let me just give you one example. We heard the child's question about the coming of the cold. So why? Why do we have winter? Why do we have this coming of the cold? Right? Well, and so what Montessori's do, they develop demonstrations and charts that illustrate the how and the why of the seasons. Okay? And what is it that's crucial to understanding the seasons? And really, honestly, a lot of adult students doing this that's destined for the children also come to understand our world that much better. First of all, it's important to understand, of course, that it's not the sun that moves. If we use our senses, it looks as though the sun moves, right? Or that at different times of the year, the movement of the sun reaches its height lower and lower in the sky, or higher and higher in the sky, which makes the day longer or shorter. Okay? No, we have to understand that it's the earth that moves. So we think of the sun's, what we see, the so-called sun's movements, is what we think of as apparent movement. That's how it looks, apparent movement. But the actual movement is the movement of the earth. And here again you have the difference between what the senses are telling you and what the reality is that we have to picture, right? So we have, of course, the two movements, rotation and revolution, but that's not enough. We also need to understand that the Earth's axis tilts, right? So there's the tilt of the axis. The axis isn't like a think of a globe, it's in the shape of a sphere. The axis isn't vertical like this, it's tilted, right? That's important too. And by the way, talking about things that change over time, the tilt of the Earth's axis has not always been the same. So that's rather interesting too. Everything that we think is fixed and constant in the end is not. But shouldn't make us insecure during the second plane, right? Anyway, the tilt of the Earth's axis. And thirdly, and crucially, the Earth's axis always points to the north. So it always points in the same direction, all right? So all of that is required if we're to understand the seasons. I can't believe that. That is shocking. I've been told that I only have 5 minutes left. How dreadful. Anyway, so I have to really stop. So we did discuss about the hungry mind. We did discuss now about the power of the imagination, how the use of the imagination is so vital to understanding these vast realities and hidden realities. All right? There is a third aspect which has to do with morality and this sensitivity for morality. Okay, that Montessori points out at this age. We have to appreciate that the children, it's not that they have a vacuum when it comes to reality. The children in the earlier plane absorbed, they incarnated whatever they found around them. So the customs, beliefs, values, the behavior, therefore, certain moral precepts also have already been incarnated by these children, okay, which makes them a member of their own human group. But this is a time where these children can also question the code of ethics, question the moral code, and in relation to concrete situations that arise in relation to their environment, their little community, the other children, you know. So they think about what is fair and not fair. In fact, that's not fair is typical of this age, isn't it? This is also a sensitivity, one that Montessori says we have to be particularly careful with because children are particularly vulnerable and they need to develop their own personal code, which can correspond perfectly with what they incarnated earlier, or they may modify it a little bit, whatever, okay? But it's really important because she says you cannot think that morality, it's important later on and not now. And how do we live our lives? Guided by a moral compass. So this age is vital also in terms of what it contributes to the development of the individual and to the life of the individual. All the achievements that are required now also will be carried for the rest of life. And there is actually another characteristic that's really important, which is Montessori never says it's a kind of sensitivity, but it's how social development changes at this age. Now, social development is always important for human beings, and human beings naturally live in groups, okay? By their nature, it's almost biological, Even if you find exceptions, individual exceptions, and decided to do, I don't know, be a hermit on top of a mountain or something, that doesn't alter anything. Okay, so we've got this social aspect that we have to bear in mind as well. And we mustn't interfere too much, but we must have still those really limited environments that are firm, that don't fall, you know, because we're going to indulge the children. In other words, we have our rules of how to live together, okay? And then we may also have exceptions according to special circumstances, etc., etc. So, cosmic education, I think I've said enough for you to understand that there's an awful lot of intellectual development going on at this time. But actually, cosmic education has a very strong moral aspect as well that serves in a very grand way, and that has to do with what I would like to call a cosmic morality that doesn't conflict with the morality of any particular human group or any particular religion. The Montessoris understood to help the children orientate themselves in these new realities, this world of knowledge that opens up. For the children to be able to orientate, special help has to be given. And that is given with the so-called great stories or cosmic fables, right? And the cosmic fable, the first one, God Who Has No Hands, that opens up the whole universe for the children, right? If you look within it, there's these great ideas within it, these great truths, and one of them is the importance of natural laws. Natural laws. Everything that exists follows laws. They may be expressed as commands in the story. It's like they have these natural laws. I'm going to start ignoring them. The second story, which is the story of life, or the story of the coming of life, when you look in there, what does it have that's special? I mean, with the story of the universe, the story of God Who Has No Hands, you see the coming of four great cosmic agents, right? What one story calls agents of creation. Sun and earth in the form of land, water, and air. So we have those four, but they're non-living. Then with the story of life, you have the coming of this great agent that's a kind of new energy. And an agent, a creation agent, means an agent that transforms, that brings about change. It's only enough to think of the earth without life to understand how life transformed the planet. Life transformed the water where it began. Life transformed the land when it came out onto the land. Life transformed the air. The air in the beginning, the atmosphere, was not composed of the gases. exactly the gases or in the proportions that we have now. That's the work of life, okay? But anyway, so when you look at the story of life, you start to get this impression, it's not stated in an over-exaggerated way, the importance of work. And the importance of work that contributes to the environment, which means it contributes to the lives of others. Maybe the others who are around now and others that will come in the future. All right? And the work that contributes to the environment or to the lives of others is known as cosmic work. So there's an activity and work that goes on that's for one's own benefit. But there's also that which is for the benefit in a much greater and grander way, cosmic work. And then one also understands in all the work that's done with biology and when we work with the interrelatedness of things, right, that actually for the planet, for the world to function, everybody has to carry out their tasks, but everything depends on the work and the tasks carried out by others. So there's this extraordinary interrelatedness. It's as though the world constitutes a huge cosmic household and everything within it has its work. But everything works together, so there is harmony, order and harmony on this planet. Then there's the story of the coming of human beings, right? It's already indicated earlier, but then we have a whole story. And that's the human story. And we don't limit it to ancient civilizations. We go back to the beginning of humanity. All right? And again, Montessori says, a new cosmic energy that enters the world. It's human energy. But in the world, so there's the grand story for that. And there's also grand stories for what permits human beings to be agents, cosmic agents, agents of change and transformation. And that is language, which is an innate characteristic, spoken language, which then leads to written language, right? And also a story of numbers, which relates to another innate characteristic, which is the mathematical mind. So when we offer the world to the children, just to bring out that contrast again, we give them the story of the universe, with charts, with demonstrations, with mathematical aids to the imagination, so that the imagination can picture things in a more exact way, and not in a vague way. So the younger children, they get a glow. It's so sensorial. But the older children get a story, right? So that they can picture in their minds the coming of the universe and how that leads to the existence of our sun and earth, etc. Right? And it's helped. The imagination is helped to picture that reality with the help of materials, which then remain available to the children, which the children could look at as often as they like. And with experiments and demonstrations, the children can do it themselves. Right. With human beings, what's important for the children to understand, and we have materials that help them with this, is both the unity of human beings and the diversity of human beings. So with our cosmic fable, we understand what all human beings have that makes all human beings special, right? Including the children. Because we don't actually use material, because the children can think of themselves. They can think of the people they know. You know, those special gifts that human beings have, that each and every human being has, right? Which we focus on. Special mind, special love, and the third one, love. Special mind, special love, and hands. Hands, okay? We even have a material that focuses on the hand, because we carry out work, yes, mentally, but also with our hands, right? Well, everybody has that. That unites everybody. Spoken language, under normal circumstances, everybody has that. And it can lead to written language, right? So, but the languages are different. Everybody has language, but the languages themselves are different. Everybody has those gifts, but how they use those gifts and the groups that are formed, because an individual human being is not an agent of change that can transform the world or the environment in a grand sense. But human beings in a group can do that. But they have to be able to live together. So they have rules or laws to live by, okay? And they also organize themselves, right? Different people have different work. They're specialized. then they depend on each other. My existence, my possibility to live, depends on the work of other people. I don't grow the food I eat. I depend on the work of the people who grow the food. I depend on the work of the people who transport that, the people who are involved in perhaps some processing of that food, on the people who actually distribute the food and make it available. And that's true for everything. This is where our fundamental human needs are so important, right? We share the same needs. We all need food. We all need clothing and shelter, means of transport, a means of defending ourselves, etc. But how we satisfy those needs varies enormously. So the children are constantly helped to understand the unity and the diversity. And this is the right age. They're interested. They know their own way of life. It's so interesting to learn about other ways of life at this time. So to conclude for the second plane, the children, what can we say about the second plane then? Well, the children's developmental needs are satisfied. Everything is done to satisfy those needs. And what is the outcome? This picture of the world and human society means that they come to understand that they belong to the world. They don't just belong to their country or their nation. They belong to the world. In that sense, they're made out of the materials of the world. They belong to the world. This is their environment. It's everybody's environment. See, there's another unity. The planet as an environment is shared by all human beings, right? So they can become citizens of the world. In their thinking, citizens of the world, not just citizens of their own nation. And not just that, because of all the work that they do in relation to humanity, they can come to feel what Montessori calls citizens of la nazione unica. La nazione unica refers to all of humanity. It is the single nation of humanity, the single great nation of humanity, and we are also members or citizens of that. All right? So citizens of the world and citizens of the single great humanity. And there's other things that the children come to appreciate. Because when your eyes open to the reality of every single object that we find here in this room now, if I say to you, take away human work, what is left of everything that surrounds us? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Yes, the work of nature, this is cotton or silk or wool, the work of nature is here in this fabric. But this isn't the wool on the sheep's back. You know, there's human work involved here. Take away human work, we have nothing, all right? Nothing. We're sitting on the ground, naked, right? With all of this gone, pen, paper, everything gone, okay? So that shows you how human beings have transformed their environment, what an agent of change they actually are. And the children can appreciate that. And so they can appreciate the work of other human beings. And the work